talk about the job market in COVID-19. And I'm also super excited because we have Paige, who is going to be interviewing him. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Paige and to Rory.
Welcome, Rory. I'm just going to introduce Rory. Besides being Mary's husband, he actually has a background that I'll share with all of you. So Rory is a senior vice president with RemX Staffing, Workforce Experts. He's responsible for leading the eastern region of this $100 million professional division within the $3 billion staffing firm EmployBridge. Total P&L responsibility for retail staffing operations in the finance, accounting, technology, office administration, and business verticals. After graduating Rider University, Rory joined Dun & Bradstreet, a global business information company based in New York City. While not at work, Rory enjoys coaching, mentoring business students, and spending free time with Mary and their children. Welcome.
Thanks, Paige. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I am going to share my screen.
Great.
I had this problem last night, so bear with me 1 second.
And everybody, please, since it's such a small group, please, feel free to ask questions, interact as you see fit. I'll try not to make it too presenting, in a presenting fashion. So feel free to just chime in when you'd like to.
Okay, I'm having a problem.
Okay. Do you want this is the PowerPoint slides page?
Yep. Can you see this? Can everybody see this?
No, I can't see it.
No, all right, hold on. This happened last night too.
Are you hitting share screen?
Yep. Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
Now, let's do it from the beginning. Everybody can see this from the beginning.
Great.
Okay.
Great, we can go to the second one if that's okay. Okay. So this is, guys, the May jobs report. Last time I was here, we talked about, it was really the first month where COVID had affected the economy, affected the job market in particular. And it's been a downward spiral from that point going forward until we took a look at May figures. So now keep in mind that anytime the job reports are released, there's always movement within these numbers, but it does give you a sense of a benchmark of which way the job market is headed. It's not a complete science, but we can talk through some of the more important factors that are behind these numbers. But May was a good month from a job report number. We added 2.5 million new jobs in the economy after a tremendous slide in March and April, where we lost 22 million jobs in the economy. The unemployment rate dropped from 16% to 13%. Sorry about that. But the fact of that matter is it's still a relatively high number compared to where it was during the first quarter. But things are relative. Earnings per hour were actually down 29 cents. There's some per hour, which may not seem like a lot, but there were these new jobs that were added tended to be on the lower end of the spectrum. We'll talk a little bit about the industries that were affected in that regard. Average hours worked were up slightly to almost 35 hours per week. So again, that's the impact of that is on the earnings of the workforce. And then the labor participation rate is a factor of people coming in from the sidelines and looking for work. So that's a positive factor that people didn't feel as though there was no need to look for work, and they did actually start participating. So some good news in the month of May. And one thing I wanted to point out in particular for this audience, is although the unemployment rate is relatively high, higher than it's been in quite a while, a number of years, the unemployment rate for students with a bachelor's degree is half of that. The unemployment rate for those with a bachelor's degree is 7.5%. So it's still a great advantage to be in school and to be graduating with a bachelor's or other type of degree. Paige, we can go to the next slide if you don't mind. And this breaks down a little bit of where the jobs are. And again, 2.51 million jobs added, which is the highest ever. Again, starting point was a bit lower. So the numbers are relative, but a tremendous bounce back last month in the leisure and hospitality industry. Now you can imagine, and you know how hard hit hotels, airlines, the Disney Worlds of the world, greatly impacted, but nice rebound as travel does open up just a little bit. Construction, if you remember, we talked last time about essential industries and non-essential industries. Construction reopened within non-essential construction. So things that were optional and not a bridge being rebuilt as an example, those workers came back. Education grew. This is a really interesting industry because it's changing. The platforms that we're using for education, technology we're using to teach you these kind of mediums and having discussions have really helped grow the education platform. Health services, you'd expect this industry to always do well, but with COVID, it actually hurt healthcare very much for the non-COVID related business, meaning optional surgeries, doctor visits that were just for normal maintenance and follow-up, actually rebounded quite a bit after suffering over the last couple of months. Retail is opening slowly. Most importantly, retail is booming on the e-commerce side. The stores are starting to open, but e-commerce has done really well to support people's buying and deliveries at home. And then finally, professional and business services grew in May. Positive sign for office workers as that side opens, accounting firms. Slightly down, and it's nominal, was information technology. I think that's just going to be a blip on the radar. I wouldn't read too much into that, but most industries were way up, and IT was down very, very slightly. So that is a overview of the statistics. And we're going to go now to some other conversation that I think you'll find pertains to your worlds. But again, as you see fit, please ask questions and we can go in any direction that you'd like.
Okay, so I'm going to start the conversation, but as Rory said, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, please. So Rory, obviously COVID-19 virus changed the world and we saw a lot of people being laid off and furloughed. Are you still seeing those trends?
Yeah, unfortunately we are. There's a lag factor with furloughs and layoffs. So in other words, when COVID first hit, companies had to react because some workers couldn't work remotely. Some jobs just don't support that. So there was an initial wave or two of layoffs. And now as earnings of companies are being reported, and businesses are trying to continue to do their normal activities, we're certainly seeing a slowdown in a lot of industries, and that unfortunately continues to have an impact on the workforce. The next trend to really look at is what is the definition of a furlough? You know, that's kind of a new term. And it used to be called layoff. And now I think it was a way to kind of put people in a status quo position. They get benefits, which is a major differentiation furloughed workers. But the real interesting number will be how many of those furloughed workers actually come back. And can companies afford to have those colleagues return based on business trends? So unfortunately, Paige, I think it's going to continue for a little while. Not all industries, but earnings will kind of dictate where that goes.
Right. And one thing I would comment, Rory, is people that were furloughed, some were furloughed for weeks and weeks at a time. Some were creatively furloughed. So maybe they were working for 3 weeks and then off a week, and then working for 3 weeks and off. So companies really were creative in how they approach that.
Absolutely, Paige. And I even heard of something they're calling job sharing now, where, right, you furlough kind of each person a half of the week to keep some income flowing into their households.
Crazy.
So does that mean those people aren't in unemployment numbers?
Furloughed workers are not in the unemployment numbers. Well, no, I take that back. They are in the unemployment numbers.
Oh, I meant like the job sharing and the 1 week on and the 1 week off. Those probably aren't, right?
They're probably on and off into unemployment, because if you're furloughed for a week, you can file unemployment, but then you're off of unemployment again the following week.
Right.
So that's where like seasonal work. So that's where the numbers will fluctuate.
Okay, so obviously during this time, companies are adopting and changing systems. Are there new ways for entry-level people to market themselves in light of these changing conditions?
Yeah, you know, I think Emma's a good example, right? You're working for BASF, but not sure if you've been in the office yet. And I think this is the new means of how we can communicate to prospective employers. Emma, just so I know, has BASF opened their doors for the workforce?
Not yet.
Okay.
In the coming weeks, but not yet.
Okay. So, and that is the norm, especially in the state, you know, where the state of New Jersey. But the way to market yourself is very similar to how you did it in the past. The face-to-face visits will be replaced by the technology. But to prepare for this and to prepare for looking for internships and or jobs, make sure that there's a structure to your day, that you're waking up at a regular time as if you were going to the office or as if you were looking for a job. Not to get personal, but shower and look presentable. I'm still on meetings where I'll see some of our teammates on a call and they're wearing a baseball cap, and you know, I'm just thinking, gosh, you know, how are you able to speak to a customer? And I think it sends a message of just not being ready and or engaged in what you're doing. But I always believe that marketing yourself in today's world takes work, and it requires personal contact. And believe it or not, there are people on my team that I see more often, physically see more often in this environment than I've seen by traveling to their offices previously. And I think we could take advantage of that by having Zoom meetings with prospective clients, skills that you know they're looking for a particular role. Make sure that those are highlighted in your communications, that they're communicated on your resume, whether it's problem solving or tech savvy or otherwise. Those are key words that employers will look for. And then those are also key words to use during a communication with a prospective hiring manager. So it's not, you know, it seems dramatic, and it is for a lot of reasons, but a lot of the rules have not changed. and it takes persistence. And I would just simply replace face-to-face visit with a video meeting, and that will go a long way.
That's great. So as a side note, because of the pandemic, I've actually had a lot more FaceTime with Mary and Pat because we're typically on different campuses. So I actually have appreciated that.
That's a great example.
Yeah,
great example.
Sure. So you touched a little bit about skills that have emerged as a must or most in demand in the last few months. So showering is really, really important. Is there anything else that you've noticed that we should really just emphasize for today?
Yes. So this is really important, guys. And you divide skills into two buckets. One is hard skills, and those are the technical skills needed to complete a task or to complete a job. So whether you're in an accounting major where you need to understand GAAP or debits and credits, or it's technologically driven where you need to understand project management or certain languages. And those are still a major factor in hiring. However, what's really evolving are a lot of the soft skills that employers are looking for to bring somebody onto their team. And because of what we're dealing with, resiliency is an absolute must. The ability to be flexible and understand that not everything is going to go perfectly well during an interview, during your first week of a job, or even during the job search. Everybody is trying to adapt best they can to this new world. It's not easy. It's not easy for you, and it's not easy for companies to adjust. I shared last time that companies first engaged or took care or worried about their workforce. How are we going to get through this? And then reality sets in, and then businesses have to continue to grow and bring on new people and continue to hire. So that is evolving. But what hiring managers are looking for is a little bit different now because you are remote. They have to count on your responsibility of being independent, working on your own. So keep that in mind. Be flexible, be open-minded, whether it's ultimately a job you accept or not, but I think that will lead to more job opportunities. And then one thing that I've seen recently that is evolving is something called behavioral interviewing, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but keep in mind when you give examples of skills, and if it's problem solving or it's saving money on an assignment you had within a business or within a class that you took. A lot of interviewers are now asking for examples of when you were able to use that skill. So if you're touting the ability to problem solve, I can think on my feet, I'm a creative thinker, they will ask very often for examples of when you were able to use those skills in real life. And again, without that personal meeting, this can fill a gap of what's important to them. And a lot of that is someone being hired that can be effective right out of the gate. So by knowing experiences that you may have of certain skills will again help you accelerate down the path of being hired.
That's great. That's really great. So Rory, what would you say to somebody who's had a job offer revoked due to the economic conditions now, and how that individual can use that information in their job search moving forward?
That's a great question, Paige. Number one, use it as a compliment. Use it to motivate you, that you are marketable, that somebody during a normal economic time said yes, and they are willing to give you a chance and bring you on board. Then as you start looking for these new opportunities, I would divide it really into three different subsets. One is, what industry hired you? There was a reason for it. Now, is it one of the faster growing industries that we spoke about earlier? Is it something that you had an internship in prior that was attractive? Is it a business that it just happened to be random? But know if there's any commonality as to the industry in which you were hired for. And then the second part are the skills. What type of role were you hired for? And what was it about your skill set or experience that was attractive to that employer? I'm sure you spoke about it during your interviews. What was it that kind of was that hot button that made it so attractive? And then finally, the dollar amount. What were you offered? What is the market rate for the role you have? You can get that data from sites like Glassdoor or Career Builder and really understand the market for salary. If you take those three ingredients and start identifying companies that are within that same industry or similar, that look at job titles that have the skill sets that were in your background and that were attractive, and then within the ballpark of dollars, you can start searching for competitors, like companies, or essential companies that are just in a hiring mode within that. So I would take advantage of it both from a psychological standpoint, that you know you're marketable, you know, again, you were hired, good sign, and then why. And I think if you can replicate that, that would help you kind of help qualify some of the opportunities.
That's great. Thank you. So it's almost the end of June. Is it worth it for students to still try to apply for internships, do you think?
I wrote down, heck yes. And, you know, internships are a definition that I know we use a lot here. And I think an internship can also be defined as just getting experience within a company. And there are other ways to do that, whether it's volunteer work, whether it is internship, paid or unpaid, or it's contract work, where a lot of companies now, because of peak season or low season, risk in the job market, they don't know economically what they may look like in the fourth quarter, are going to bring on, because they still have to get work done, employees, but they may want to bring them on a contract basis. The percentage of contract workers that convert to permanent is increasing because of that, call it a try and buy by the client, by the company. That's an opportunity for new employees to build a resume, build experiences in different industries. So Paige, a heartfelt yes to try to get any experience that you can within a similar environment of your ultimate goal, or any experience that gives you the ability to demonstrate you're out there working, you want to try to make money, but you're also gaining experience in the real world, which is just going to help build a resume and build your conversations going forward.
Agreed. No, I'm happy to hear that. Lindsay, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but Lindsay is a student who I spoke to before we joined this call, and she has been looking at and volunteering. And the volunteering experience hopefully will lead to opportunities, including an internship in the future. So I'm glad to hear that you believe that, because that was our conversation too.
Lindsay, I think it's a great step on your part, just to show the fortitude to do the work, number one. So, you know, high five to you. And then number two, it gives you dialogue with an employer. And not that, and everyone knows it's hard now. So not doing it is not a negative, but doing it is a positive in that you can share your experiences, how you got it, what you're doing there, your experience. So that's a great example of just showing that you have something to talk through with an employer.
Thank you, Rory. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
So Rory, I know you don't have a crystal ball, because if you did, you'd be at the track, not on the phone with us. But when do you see the job market changing, or like really starting to get back to a new normal, a different normal?
Yeah. Last time we were together, the economic downturn was caused by a health crisis. And it wasn't the key indicators of the economy doing anything wrong. In fact, those are still fairly strong. The challenge is the uncertainty of a closed economy. So companies are re-engineering how they do business, how to use technology better. So business has to continue. There are reopenings going on, but it's slow. Right now there's a discussion around a V-shaped rebound or a U-shaped rebound or a W rebound. And those are all visuals of how the economy will rebound. And the consensus is that it will be a U-shaped. V is kind of down quick, up quick. U is down and then a slow recovery. And I think that's where we're headed economically. It's a slow rebound because it's not over yet. COVID is still showing its ugly head. And I know in our world, we're not hiring. And when we do, it's very slow and pragmatic. We're careful. And that's how our clients are reacting as well. Now, I will say there are some industries that are rocking and rolling. From bad always comes some good. With record low unemployment rates, record low interest rates. I wish it was record low unemployment rate. Interest rates, the mortgage and all related real estate businesses are going through the roof. If those companies can't hire enough people fast enough, whether it's mortgage related or title or real estate, food services, food preparation, logistics, distribution, accounting firms are all doing very well. And so those are targets that I would highlight. Regardless of where the economy goes, there's always some industries, some niches that will do well. Whoever thought that Zoom would be the hottest technology on the market? So I don't have a crystal ball. However, I think it's going to be a slow go through the balance of this year. I think first quarter will be strong, but hopefully that will the virus itself will cooperate. But doesn't mean it's all doom and gloom. There are industries that are hiring, and there are things that we could be doing to help find that first job or third job.
Okay, thank you. Just as a side note, Shipt. So you've all heard of Instacart, but Shipt, S-H-I-P-T, seems to be a quick way to make money. So if you do have a couple of extra hours and you have a car, I know CVS and Acme and Stop and Shop are companies that use it. And my niece who's starting school in September is loving it. So just as a side note for a few hours.
Awesome. Yeah, and team, if you look on the newjersey.gov website, there are a list of the most available jobs in New Jersey by employer. So that might give you a little look at that also page, just to show those industries, but also the company specifically. And I think you could apply directly online from there.
Okay. Yep. Pat and I just made a note. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Any other advice that you would give us?
What is that again? I'll put it in the chat. New Jersey what?
.gov, and I think it's /COVID-19. And they list all the open jobs of a lot of these where they're hiring volume type roles. Instacart is one that came to mind. Overall advice is, again, unemployment for college graduates is half of what the unemployment rate is for the rest of the country. You're still in an envious position of having a lot to talk about, whether it be from your classes or from internships or from volunteer work. Looking for a job is not easy, but I would encourage structure. Have a plan, know who your target audience is, both from an industry, a company, and then who within that company would you want to speak to, and be visible. Whether it's a resume, but then use your voice, call. People are home now, so it's easier to get a hold of folks because they're not in airports or on airplanes. Take advantage of that. And often it's that type of approach that will set you apart. It gives you the advantage over somebody else who's just sending it into a job portal and hoping they get a response. That is those odds are not in your favor. And I'll be honest, the team you have here with Paige and Pat and Mary, it's a big advantage because they're speaking to employers each day. So make yourself visible to them too. And the more the merrier. More you get out there, the more that will come back to you. But it's not easy. Stay positive with it. But know that you're in a much better position than a lot of people that are looking for work because of your college education.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do any of our participants have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So what you were saying before, that if we called and we just simply introduced ourselves and say, hi, my name is so-and-so, I'm a student at this university. I just applied for this internship position. Is that what you're referring to?
Exactly,
Okay,
Sophia. So, you could jot down a couple of key, words that so you're scripted, but yes, it's an introduction, why you're calling, and then I would even include the reasons that you think you're a great candidate for a meeting. And that often can be derived from, if you look at the job description, and then you match up where your experience is. And that becomes your, I don't want to say a brand, but that becomes your message of why Sophia. The reason I'm calling today is I applied for a role, an internship at your company. I've got 2 years experience in working in this environment. I'm currently studying X, Y, and Z. I've worked in roles while in college, and I think I would be a great fit culturally and have the skills for your company, like to set up a meeting. So you just want to get to the point where you're introducing yourself to these folks face to face. But that's exactly the approach as you were referring to.
Okay,
and I would even, and Sophia, I would even add to that, to reach out to us to see, maybe there's an FDU alum in that firm or a contact. I mean, maybe we don't, but it's worth asking the question.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Great point.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
You're welcome.
I have a question. So obviously there's more downtime at home than there usually would be. So obviously while I am working an internship during the day, I have more time outside of work to be working on like smaller projects. So I actually am learning a new data software in my free time, and I've spoken to some other FDU students who are doing smaller projects on the side. Like I have a friend who just completed a smaller couple-week course at UPenn about accounting analytics. So I wonder if you could think of anything that like a smaller project that would just be cool to put on your resume, or some like skills that we could be working on online, or programs that you know of that are offering things for us to do in our free time that's going to help us?
Great question, Emma. Yeah, if you think about what an employer really wants from a new hire, whether it's a recent grad or otherwise, they want to be able to get a return on their investment, and therefore the employee should be able to hit the ground running. So if there are skills that are always in need, and one that comes to mind always is using Excel, or the ability to manipulate a spreadsheet and create macros, or pivot tables, a little advanced. But if with a business background, those skills are good to have. So getting a certification within a program or a software, a certification in data analytics, I think is a tremendous reflection, not only on how someone uses their time, but also it will give you a skill set that you're able to implement those skills on day one of your job. So those are great examples. And the ones that are hot right now are around data analytics and project management. So you mentioned the word project, and that is a need within companies because work is still piling up, and they need to be able to get hands to complete a task. So organizing yourself through a project management type skill set is becoming more popular.
I would also add, I suspect an interview question will be moving forward. What have you done during this time? So if you don't have an internship and you're not taking a class, if you can say, well, I've expanded my learning by doing X, Y, and Z, or volunteering, that's a built-in answer. Employers want to know that you're doing something versus sitting on the couch waiting for someone to come to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Any other questions?
I do have another question. How do you feel about virtual internships? I have a couple of friends of mine who are currently doing that, and the only thing that they complain about is, they wish they could be at the office and interacting with their coworkers, and they feel like they're missing that connection.
Yeah. Number one, I think a virtual internship is great. Any experience you can get, Sophia, is absolutely to your benefit. Totally agree, however, the human interaction is missing, but it's missing anyway. Meaning companies are opening very slowly, even for their existing colleagues. We're not open. We're all working virtually. We do miss each other, the physical teamwork. But I also would say there are benefits that we're gaining from time, from frequency, that is replacing some of that human contact. But any type of internship, any experience you can gain, and virtual is the norm, is absolutely in the plus column. But I'm sensitive to the fact that human contact is missing, but maybe there's a way also, as part of any kind of redeployment back to the office, that they can find time to be together, even if it's half the team at once, and just evolve back physically. Maybe that could be a recommendation, but a virtual internship is much better than no internship at all.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sophia, I would just add, whoever's managing you, reach out to them and ask them if you can just have some FaceTime. Sometimes managers, especially now, are so caught up in what they're doing, they may not think of what your needs are and what you want. So you should definitely feel that you can ask to just spend 20 minutes or a half an hour to just see them and talk in person and have a list of questions that you may want to have answered.
All right, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I got one question. So right now I'm volunteering for 2 organizations, and one of them I see it really aligns with my career path. So I want well, at one point during my volunteer experience, I want to tell them like I'm very interested in doing like an internship with you, maybe in the fall, in next spring. So at what period in my volunteer experience should I tell them that, and who should I tell it to?
I would love to learn a little bit more about that, so we can be specific. But I would let as many people know as possible, and share with them your feedback of how much you do enjoy it. It could even be an email, Lindsay, after the day is over, and just reiterate the fact that, you know, how much you do enjoy it. And I appreciate the time and the work that you're doing. So that is being communicated in writing. But also try to understand what the hierarchy looks like in the organization. LinkedIn is a good source of that. If you were to search LinkedIn to see who's connected within that company, even look at their website and identify job titles. And the person who hired you, if you will, or brought you on board, I would ask, share how much you enjoy your role. Is this something that you could continue down the road? Who can you talk to about it? But make people aware of how much you are enjoying it. I'm sure the feelings are mutual. And then who you can talk to going forward about something more formal.
Thank you. That's really useful advice. Thank you very much.
Of course, you're welcome.
Last chance for additional questions or comments.
I know this is for students, but I'll take advantage of having Rory.
Please.
One of my things that I get frustrated with is, and it's usually with freshmen or sophomores, and I think it's part of it is, you know, they don't have the confidence yet, but I'll send them an opportunity and I'll say, I think this is great, you should apply. And then the emails come back and forth saying, well, I'm not sure that really aligns perfectly with what I want to do. What do you think about it? And I get a little frustrated, to say the least, because I, like to what you were saying, you have to be resilient. And especially in this current environment, I feel like they need to be open to experience. Just apply. I get frustrated. I feel like saying, just apply. Who says you're even going to get an interview?
Absolutely.
But am I being too impatient?
No, I agree. And it's somewhat generational, where I understand that folks want to do what they want to do and want to do what they love to do. Maybe this is a message or a learning experience of where we are and the fact that we don't have the pick of the litter right now. Jobs are more or less available. So maybe this is a way, you know, just like you look for a silver lining of COVID, and maybe it's wildlife is now living freer and can fly because there are no people there. And maybe it's the same thing here where we were picky 3, 4, 5 months ago, we can't be picky right now. And experience and real life is valuable regardless of what you want to do 10 years from now. I wanted to be center fielder for the Yankees, and that didn't work out so well. But
I have a sign like that. It says, I wanted to be a rock star, but it didn't work out.
Right. So all right, what are you going to do in the meantime?
You are a rock star.
So all of these experiences, guys, that you will gain, it's not what you're going to do 5 years from now, or frankly, you don't know what necessarily the path it's going to bring you down. But just know that these are steps in a direction that will ultimately help you find what you really want to do. And it's a way to make money. It's a way to build your resume. But maybe this is the time where we can kind of rethink that a little bit, Pat, and position it differently with the young workforce about why.
That's great. And I would even go so far as to say, even a bad experience is a good experience.
Right. That's a great point, Paige. I agree. Okay.
Rory, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for participating. And Mary, any last words?
No, I think that's a wrap.
Yeah.
That was awesome. You guys are great. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Yep, stay cool.
Thanks, everybody. I'm on LinkedIn if you need any help, or I'm happy to help you in any way I can along with the FDU team, but you're in great hands.
Thank you, Rory.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.